to the last section of our presentation, wherein we would discuss as to how and what to read in an annual report and what are some of the key informations that one has to look forward to when you are looking at an annual report, and the level of criticality of that information to public, to the users of the annual report. Now, the first and the foremost is the vision and the mission statement of the company. We've been talking about it, but what are these vision and mission statements? So, you would find statements like that we will be a globally respected corporation. We want to have strategic partnerships for building tomorrow's enterprise. And you would also have companies which would give out a forward looking factual vision statement that we want to achieve a turnover of $1 billion. We want to achieve 5,000 crores over next 5 years. So that becomes the objective of an entity. It could be generic in nature, which could be in the form of their reputation, branding, or it could be a numeric vision or an objective or a goal of an entity, which could be in the form of profitability, revenue target, market share, or various other such factors that could come through. So that to a user gives out direction of the company, that gives out ideology of the company, that gives out the ethos of the company. So this is, I would say, a medium critical information that is given out to the users of the annual report. Moving on to the next section is the corporate information. Now, in corporate information, we would have information about the directors, bankers, auditors, the registered office, their manufacturing facilities, where they are coming up with newer investments, which are the states that those are the company is investing in, which are the states the company is currently operating in. This again is information about the current factual position of the company and also where the company is intending to foray into, both in terms of demographics, geographies, and also in terms of products. So all such information is given in the corporate information section of an annual report. This again would be a medium critical information that is given out to the users and is required for a better understanding of an enterprise. Moving further, the next section is about the product overview and financial highlights in last 5 to 10 years. Now, this is a important section because it is giving out information about the overview of the financial information, both GAAP and non-GAAP. Now, what is GAAP and non-GAAP? GAAP, the full form of GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles. Now, whenever we talk about GAAP, which is Ind AS or IGAAP that we discussed a while ago, that is something that the company would use to prepare its financial statements. Yeah, balance sheet, profit and loss, cash flows, notes to accounts would be GAAP information, which would be something that we would be discussing separately towards the later part. However, in the financial overview section, there is a lot of non-GAAP information, which is information like market share, information like newer products that are coming, information like which are the geographies that the company is operating in, which are the newer geographies they want to operate in, information on EBITDA, information on earnings before exceptional items or after exceptional items. What are some of the exceptional events and items that had a financial implication that occurred during the year? Now, all of this is extremely important to the users because this is how much a company intends to communicate. Because otherwise, there is no way for the users to comprehend and understand this information because this is not required by any statute. The standards prescribed by SEBI or Companies Act only say that the company needs to be transparent and give out financial overview of such kind of an information to public at large. How much a company eventually transmits and informs the shareholders, the users, would determine the branding of the company, the transparency of the company, and eventually has an impact on the overall reputation of an entity. But this is key information, and while a person is reading to know about a company, this is one section that one must look forward to, because this is information otherwise not available in public domain by the company. Moving further, you have the director's report. A director's report is a mandatory requirement, which is required as per the Companies Act, both for private and for listed entities, wherein a director would eventually have to sign off and own up that statement, and it would have things like what are the capital expenditure that the company is intending to get into, what are some of the strategic partnership a company is intending to enter into, what are the forecast for next 3 to 5 years, is the company seeing any risks in their current businesses that are there. If there are any non-compliances, then the director must specifically mention the reason and the rationale for such non-compliances in the director's report. If an auditor has qualified the report, a director has to give out the reason as to why they have taken that kind of a qualification, and why as a company they believe that non-compliance is okay or acceptable to them, and such information is given out in the director's report. Next section is on management discussion and analysis. In terms of importance, this is, I would say, one of the most important piece of information that is there in a financial statements. Not financial statements, but in the annual report. This has information about insights into a company's strategy and a SWOT analysis. What are the key strengths and key drivers which are driving the growth of the company? What are some of the risk factors? And risk factors, not so much in India, because in India, generally companies do not like to talk a lot of negative stuff. But this information is something, if you would see annual reports globally, the risk factors are extremely, extremely important. Likewise, in our country, if a new company is going in for listing, SEBI requires a very detailed documentation and disclosure by companies on the risk factors. In terms of annual report, more mature companies and larger companies are still forthcoming in coming out to bring these risk factors out. But this is again a area which is currently evolving. Moving further, you would have opportunities and threats, which is again more futuristic and forward-looking statement, wherein what are some of the areas, product lines, demographies, geographies, countries that the company is intending to foray into? Where would the investments going into? What is the dividend policy of the company? How much do they, whatever the company would be earning, how much of that do they intend to distribute to the shareholders as dividend? How much do they want to reinvest? How much of it would be used for organic and inorganic growth? All of that would be covered in the MD&A section, which is where this is one of the key piece of information that users use to get a better understanding of the operations and the future growth of an entity. Moving further, the next section is on corporate governance. Corporate governance is all about policies, procedures, transparency, disclosure, and ethics that are being followed by an entity. There are various regulatory bodies that a listed company is required to have. You have the shareholders bodies, you have the independent directors, you have the audit committee, you have the remuneration committee, and you have a big compliance that they have to ensure, which is compliance of the Companies Act 2013. All of these factors are covered in the form of the corporate governance reporting by the company. and in corporate governance reporting, it is not just the reporting by an entity, but also there is an auditor certification that is required by the company to give out to public at large whether they are in compliance with the laws of the land in terms of transparency and reporting or not. And if there is a qualification or an observation by a auditor in such report, that is a important information for the reader of an annual report to know that whether or not company is ethically and transparently disclosing and complying with the laws of land or not. Moving further, you have information about shares of the company, which would have information which is even otherwise available on stock exchanges, NSE, BSE website, but this would have information about the market capitalization, how the share price movement has occurred over a period of time, what is the dividend distribution policy, and various ratios like a PE ratio, interest coverage ratio, and some of the other ratios. So this is more information which is available in various forms in public domain, but comprehensively all put together at one place. And this is essentially historical information about the share price of the entity. Moving further, you have the auditor's report, which is I would want to take the next three sections together, which is the auditor's report, the financial statements, and notes to accounts. Now, these three are comprising, I would say, 60% of an annual report would be comprising of these three sections, which is the GAAP information, which is the information about the financial results of the company. And it would also have reporting by an auditor, which is an independent body, independent person who is reporting on the compliance of these standards, Companies Act, GAAP measures by the companies. For government companies, the auditor is appointed by the CAG, which nominates an auditing firm to go and audit the financial statements of an enterprise, sign off, and then these are given out to public at large. For a company which is not a government company, the auditors are appointed by an audit committee, which again is an independent body comprising majority of independent directors. Independent directors are directors who do not have any business interest in a company, and those are the people who would appoint an auditor. And again, an auditor is somebody who has to be independent. An auditor cannot be a relative of an enterprise. An auditor cannot be somebody who has business or any fiduciary interest in an entity. So it is a report by an independent body on the operations, compliance, and other factors of an entity. So these were all the aspects. One thing that I would urge the users to definitely look at, in our country, SEBI has also come out with awards for the level and kind of information that companies give out in their annual report, the comprehensiveness of such information, the level of information, and such transparency and compliance as well. And there are gold, platinum, and plaque awards which are being given. The latest awards that are available are of 2020, wherein these awards happened. And some of the key reports that I would urge the users, the viewers to look at are of ICICI, SBI, ITC, Infosys. These are some of the award-winning annual reports by the regulator in our country, and these give out information in a very, very comprehensive and transparent and detailed manner. I hope you found this session interesting. Thank you very much for your patient listening. God bless all of you.